Hard work, hard work, hard work, work. There you go.
Forward!
Hard work, hard work, hard work, hard work, hard work, work. There you go.
Forward!
Hard work, hard work, hard work, hard work, hard work, work. There you go.
Forward!
Hard work, hard work, hard work.
Fall in. Hey, what's good? What's good? What's good? What's going on? It's me, Trey the Commission. Y'all know what it is. First Formation Morning Sports Talk. So come on and fall in with us as we get to talking about sports and what's been happening over the last couple of days, in which there's been a couple of things. I'm not going to be holding y'all too long, as of course, as I get acclimated to my new surroundings, I have to go do a couple of things. But I really wanted to get on and talk because I have a couple of topics in which I wanted to touch on briefly. So, however it goes, we'll rock with it. First and foremost, it has been so swiftly when you blink and look up that the WNBA season is already, the postseason is already upon us, as they're basically within the home stretch, the last week of their regular season, and great things seemingly being accomplished, of course. For the most part, first and foremost, shout out to Brianna Stewart, who with a 40-point output yesterday versus the Dallas Wings, in which they got a 94-93 win over Brianna Stewart becomes the single season score or scoring leader, breaks the record as she has scored 885 points to date as of right now, currently eclipsing that mark from Brianna Stewart, from Diana Taurasi, who set the mark in 2006. Here we are, 25. She now has a 25-point has set the bar with an additional 25 points with that 40-point game. Of course, she still has more games left to play, two to be exact, to where they have, I believe, a back-to-back. What's good, Tops? Glad to have you formation this morning, brother. Blessings to you this morning. Hope everything's going well. Glad to have you with us. So, yes, Diana Taurasi set the mark. Currently, Brianna Stewart has broke the mark. In which Taurasi did in 34 games in 2006. Brianna Stewart has had 38 games to do it, and she still has a couple of more games to go down the stretch. Not to be outdone, however, the Candace's sons, Alyssa Thomas, breaks the mark for the single season assist record, in which she had 27 points, 12 rebounds, and 14 assists versus the Chicago Sky. I'm so sorry. Excuse the tongue twisting. To where she breaks the record. Correction. She breaks the record that was currently held and set in 2019 when it was 300 for the it was 300 points as the record. She now holds the record currently with I believe 304 assists on the year. And correction, she broke it versus the Los Angeles Sparks with a 90-76 win last night. So both women, hats off. She still has a couple of games remaining. In which, even though currently Alyssa Thomas has broken the record, Vandersloot, the former holder of the record, is still hot on her tail. She just eclipsed, she's met the mark in which she set in 2019, Tuesday night herself, with 300 assists on 300 assists. So potentially and possibly, it's possible for Courtney Vandersloot, the former holder of the record, to do her thing to get back in the position where she can put herself right back in the same instance in which she excuse me, in which he was before. Um, of course. So interestingly enough, when you look at it, as we look at both of those two teams as they're 1 and 2 in the WNBA, as they are set to go into their postseason with the top 6 teams. Um, well, correction, top I think 8 teams going to the playoffs. Um, Of course, Las Vegas is number 1. Liberty 2. The Connecticut Sun come in at 3. Dallas Wings at 4. The Minnesota Lynx currently at 5. Washington Mystics at 6. All already punched their ticket to their playoffs. On the back end, trying to get in, of course, with like you said, 2 spots remaining. 3 teams vying for it: the Atlanta Dream, Chicago Sky, and the Los Angeles Sparks. All have an opportunity, basically with 2 games remaining on each one. All their schedules, or the whole league schedules, of course. Um, the last 2 games remaining for New York, of course, the Liberty with the opportunity to one set their mark and finish the season. Hold on, I'm sorry. Want to make sure because I'm missing something. Of course, yes. As I was saying, sorry, slightly. But again, the 2 games remaining for the Liberty, a home and home game versus the Los Angeles Sparks, and the Washington Mystics, that holds them back. And basically, for the Aces, they basically have 2 games remaining as well. Being those 2 games being a home and home series versus the Phoenix Mercury. So, of course, like we were just saying, the Sparks need some help. They need to get a W in. Um, they need to get a W in New York in order to stay alive and punch their ticket, as they are fighting for their playoff existence at this point. So, of course, tomorrow gives them an opportunity to put them in position to where they can continue, depending upon where the Sky and Dream land. So, of course, shout out if you into sports, basketball, women's basketball. Be sure to check out those games as it comes down to um, the final wire to see who gets into the playoffs this year in order to compete for yet another championship in the WNBA. So, uh, what else is on the docket? Not going into the NBA yet. Let's tap in and look at the NFL as it's about to start. We are basically 2 games, correction, a little more than 24 hours away from the first game of the NFL season, as the Kansas City Chiefs look to defend their championship. In the beginning, it starts with the defense versus the Detroit Lions in Kansas City to kick off the season, which will be going. Interestingly enough, what's going to go on, though, however, Kansas City may be without their tight end, Travis Kelsey, as he sustained the injury yesterday in practice, in which there was negative. It came back negative as a ACL tear or anything like they said. That's still intact. So it was interesting to know whether or not Travis Kelsey will be in the offense, in the Kansas City offense this coming weekend. Uh, I don't think it'd hurt to set him out, although he may be detriment to the Kansas City Chief offense, but it's worse things than that. Of course, on the opposite side of the spectrum, there's a lot of teams that are currently without their top players. Interestingly enough, when you think ironically, that makes the top player in Kansas City that's going to be out. As of course we know, Chris Jones, defensive end, currently also sits out too. and waiting to negotiate his contract to get that extension. He's still out. San Francisco's own Bosa still sits out as he has not got the deal that he's looking for yet. Although the talk is that San Francisco is going to give him a deal, it just has to wait and put everything together. But in-state is he may not be at the opener on Sunday. Of course, fingers crossed, everyone's hoping that he be there. In any case, both the 49ers and the Pittsburgh Steelers, who is their opponent, are preparing to as if Bosa is going to be there. So, of course, we continue on more, and more to come with those developing stories. Of course, being a 49er fan, I hope that Nick is going to be present and able to play, especially taking consideration. I'm very sure when these players decide to sit out and go that route and with the expectancy of possibly being playing, especially coming so close, that they do continue to do stuff. Of course, there's nothing that's going to mimic the gameplay for the most part, but I hope they continue to do stuff to take care of their bodies and keep themselves ready to go just in case everything comes about. In this particular case, we're talking about 3 days before the 49ers take the field. I'm not sure if Nick Bosa will be traveling with the team in that aspect, or even if he's still around the team in that aspect as he continues to hold out. But um, hopes are high that we'll see him back in uniform and back on the field to exact whatever he needs to do. It would have been great to see a TJ Watt versus Nick Bosa defensive matchup as they both look to continue their excellence. And the year before, it's Defensive Player of the Year versus the defending Defensive Player of the Year. It would have been a sight. But unfortunately, it may not happen. Um, what else? What else? Hyperextension. That's what the injury was to Travis Kelce. Hyperextended knee. Um, so hopefully we get to see Travis Kelce in. I know that's a shock for those fantasy football players as fantasy league owners. Kelsey's a pretty high person to not have. In the NBA, round ball, round ball, round ball. Let's talk about it. First and foremost, Team USA comes back on a redemption tour as they redeem themselves after taking their first L in FIBA action to Lithuania just a couple of days ago. They come back in action facing off against Italy, in which they drop the hammer on Team Italy with a win of 37 points. Team USA came out blistering, had to show that they were who we thought they were. Led, of course, interestingly, and not this time, not by Edwards, but by Halliburton, who continues to be, I'm not going to say a surprise, but continues to have a consistent game himself. And, and Halliburton and his team continue to be Mikal Bridges. That's what I could think of his name. Him and Mikal Bridges continue to set the tone as being the most consistent players in the this year for Team USA. On the opposite side of the spectrum, Latavia gets beat by Germany by the score of 81-79. Franz Wagner with 16 points for the German squad, in which now this sets USA and Germany for a rematch from their tune-ups and their play in pool play. It sets them on another clash course as they look to face each other, with the winner of this game being able to continue and go on to bigger and brighter things, as that means they will be going on to the gold medal round in said in tournament. On the other side of the spectrum, the team in which knocked off the USA team just a couple of days ago, is defeated by Serbia, in which Bogdan Bogdanovic had 18 21 points in the first half. Um, and basically took care of business. Some of the key things in which led to the defeat most likely is the Lithuania team that was hot, scorching the nets versus Team USA, just went cold during this game. Of course, it's just a matter of history repeating itself. Of course, the team Lithuania beat the U.S. in 1998 World Championships and then failed to medal. Of course, then again, the Lithuanian beats Team USA again in 2024 in the Olympics, failed to medal. Of course, they just beat the USA team by 6 points. But not with the elimination in yesterday's game. Failed to medal again as they will not be in position to go on to play in any other round. Unfortunate. Of course, we know basically the two teams that lose this game between Germany in the U.S. and Serbia, and who will Serbia be potentially facing? Um, Between Canada and Slovenia will end up competing for the bronze medal in the rounds for the third place game. So it's already the stage is set. USA will take on Germany, and today we will find out who Serbia will be facing, even Slovenia or Canada going forward. So look forward to seeing how that all turns out and plays out. So I guess in the wee hours of the night, a couple of other things came up. What's good, Rita? Glad to see you. Information was more. I hope everything is going good for you out there in upper Louisiana, northern Louisiana. Hope your morning is getting gracious. New Orleans, New Orleans, New Orleans. It seems that these things keep on happening for New Orleans as now potential all-star, perennial all-star, Trey Murphy III suffers a slight knee meniscus injury on Tuesday, which, of course, has to go with further testing, in which we don't know what the outcome of that's going to be for Trey Murphy. As you know, Trey Murphy was instrumental last year in some of the elevation of the Pelicans, his ability to off the dribble and knock down threes behind the arc was instrumental in them keeping their head above water. Now we look at it, he could potentially be out. We still don't know what the outcome of Zion Williamson will be. We always know the what happens with Brandon Ingram and how he always tends to go and be a little out of sorts. So what is up for the Pelicans now? Trey Murphy potentially out going forth. He started 65 games last year. It was the 17th overall pick in 2021. So there was some upside going for him, potentially a possibility to get his name in the conversation for an all-star position. We just hope he gets better. What's good, TT? Glad to have your information this morning. What's going on with you? Hope your morning is going graciously well. Glad to have you. So, a little bit of good news, in my opinion, that surfaced yesterday. Is not the news with Danny Green. As you know, he agrees to a 1-year deal to play with Philadelphia. If you don't know, Danny Green was a Philadelphia 76ers after going through the gauntlet. We know his career started out in San Antonio. He won a couple of championships there. He left San Antonio, went to LA, won a championship there that year. Leaves LA to go to Toronto, goes and wins a championship in Toronto at that point, and then left Toronto to go to Philadelphia At that point in which Philly um, ended up trading him to to Houston. Houston ended up releasing him. Um, and then waiving him, and then of course he went on to serve the rest of the season playing with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Nick Nurse, the coach in Toronto, has decided that he would like to bring Danny Green back into the fold, and now Danny Green is going to be playing with the Philadelphia 76ers late in his career. Of course, Danny Green, 655 corner threes dropped over the course between since entering the league, which is third most amongst players around the same time. The other two players being Trevor Ariza and PJ Tucker for corner three assassins. So Danny Green will be with the Philadelphia 76ers, bringing that in. I don't know if that's going to, I definitely don't think that is the thing to solve the problem in which they have in Philadelphia, because they're still lacking a talent in the form of James Harden, but we shall see how all that ends up going. More on the basketball front, of course, it's best for last when we talk about this. Like I said, I won't be holding y'all long this morning because I have an appointment to get to, but I just had to get a couple of things off my chest in these last couple of ones. So the upside of it is the Los Angeles Lakers have signed center Christian Wood to a 2-year, just under $6 million deal. 2 years, $3 million for the most part, to where Christian Wood comes in to help bolster that front court. Now we have an opportunity, especially with the signing of Christian Wood as well as Jackson Hayes, to maybe get AD that off the center position, and he can do some damage at power forward. Potentially also opening it up to where he can have some good rest, and maybe even potentially adding to the fact of, we know what's good, Leslie. What's going on, bro? Hope you're doing good out there in over there in the southeast in Florida. But yeah, Christian Wood, in my opinion, great sign. You know what? Rob Pelinka is doing his thizzle over there in Los Angeles. I'm starting to look at Rob Pelinka a little bit differently. You putting in the work over there. Now he puts himself adding Christian Wood, in which I have hoped that saw that. I thought he wasn't going to be possible to get him, but of course he moves over from Dallas. Of course, he did a couple of years in Houston, left Houston. First Detroit, then he went to Houston, left Houston. A year in Dallas, 2 years in Dallas. Now he is a Los Angeles Laker, in which that should help out tremendously in Tinseltown. Oh, Team USA is going to win that, I believe. We will medal. Well, you know what? I would say we're definitely going to medal. I'll give you that much. I say we're going to medal. But I expect the medal to be gold, and as well the rest of the world. But Christian Wood definitely going to be a gracious fit in LA if he can stay healthy at those times of where we are lacking with AD. He proves to be, I think, a good backup in that role. And now you can run him at the same time, him and AD, or him and Jackson Hayes and AD. There's so many different intricacies in which now they can put out a formidable backcourt at this point. So all things look up. Of course, last year Christian Wood averaging 17 points, 7 rebounds a game for Dallas in the game in which he played. 30% from the arc, which isn't bad in a sense. I'm not correction. Yeah, he shot just over 38% from 3-pointer last year, over the last season. So maybe that adds a little bit, where you have a big man that, if when not in the paint, or can draw other people out the paint in order to show that he can stroke it from outside. It should be. I think we got a good look going on. So LA, I'm not saying championship yet or anything like that, but I think we're looking good. Addition to Christian Wood, being added into the fray. So maybe starting to do that. All we need to do is set the table. I've been seeing the conversation in reference to Trey Young potentially being a pickup in LA at some point. Or maybe Giannis Antetokounmpo being a pickup in LA at some point. It's just one of those things in which the Lakers organization does. You start to lose out on a player, and then later on, that player is replaced by another franchise player. It's just the price of doing business in Los Angeles. So, last but not least, a couple of things. Like I said, I wouldn't be holding y'all long as I have to get ready for a couple of appointments and go to a couple of appointments. College football, right? We have another great game potentially coming up as this weekend, the ESPN game day, the college game day, the crew will be posted up in Alabama as the rematch from last year's game, which was in Austin, University of Texas versus Alabama, which puts number 11 versus, correction, I don't want to get the rankings wrong because it's some BS, but it is what it is. But basically, we'll have number 11. What was in number 11? I know the rankings came out yesterday, in which now Texas is. Oh yes, yeah. So number 11 against number 3 for the most part in Opelousas. Correction, not Opelousas. In Alabama, in Tuscaloosa, where we'll see them face off. So of course that's going to be a gracious thing, but that's not even what I want to compensate on, right? I want to go back and take a look back into the two teams that started the barn fire in games in which we had 3 top 25 upsets. Two of them 3 upsets end up being top 10 upsets as Duke knocked off Clemson by a 21-point deficit, um, taking an unranked Duke team, now number 21 in the polls, and dismantling Clemson, dropping them from 9 to Clemson is now Duke is 21. Clemson went from 9 to 25. I'm sorry, almost missed it. Dropping from the dropped from the top to the bottom as they dropped for roughly 15 to 15 spots. And then, of course, the cost of doing business with the TCU Colorado game basically took TCU from being the 17th ranked team to being bounced out the top 25 and replaced with the likes of Colorado at 22. Ole Miss moves up to their old position at number 20. So it's been a lot going on. And of course, last but not least, which was expected, LSU fell from number 5 to number 14 and catapulted Florida State to number 4 with 3 first place votes in tow. Interesting. So interesting how that all breaks down. But before we get into, saying the whole breakdown of the top 25, which I definitely got something to say about that, let's talk about TCU, right? So TCU has a former Navy cadet or Navy midshipman that used to play in Navy, playing currently for TCU. Of course, that person being senior linebacker Johnny Hodges, in which came out and stated and made his mark known, talking about it is so unfortunate, and what you should expect that, especially coming from a service academy. In my opinion, his delivery in which it all talks about is that he speaks on how it's not fair for the ridicule of their defensive coordinator, Joe Gillespie, and to get the ridicule for the debacle of their defense giving up 45 points to what was then expected to be a lesser of an opponent in Colorado. They gave up 45 points along with 565 yards. 510 of those 565 yards came from Shedeur Sanders as he set a single season record in passing yards in during the debut with 510 passing yards, 4 touchdowns. But of course, like I said, linebacker Hodges basically stated that it wasn't the fault of the defensive coordinator, and he does not deserve any of the ridicule because in-state was that he prepared them properly, as he stated. He basically said that it was understood what everything in which Shedeur Sanders was going to do, and which he did do. It was just poor execution on behalf of the defense, and they did not do what they were supposed to do. They didn't hold up their end of the bargain, and Joe Gillespie prepped them properly. And he basically said that they mimicked just about everything. And from his assertion, they mimicked about everything that was done, or was going to be done in that case. They just didn't execute. So he just doesn't think it's fair to accuse defensive coordinator Joe Gillespie or the head coach Sonny Dykes in that aspect. And I kind of like feel where he's coming from in that aspect when it comes down to it, because what do you do when you as a coach or anything, a coach, a parent, a leader amongst your soldiers, airmen, I almost said seamen, pause, airmen, shipmen, and all that type of stuff, Marines, you have properly prepared or given guidance, leadership and guidance to individual, and when it comes time to go out and show and put that on display, it doesn't happen, and you just like you're left there wondering. So Hodges, who basically has transferred from the Naval Academies, basically came out and stated that he vows that would not happen again, and he plans to hold the team accountable for their actions and not executing the mission. I mean, I guess you could say mission in a sense, because that was what it was. The mission was to go out to get a dub over Colorado, especially when you look at the fact that TCU was coming in off of, as a 20 ranked squad, in which now with the loss, they've got their second loss in as many games. The biggest, of course, being they were a CFP Bowl champion in the championship game last year, in which they got throttled by Georgia by a 67-7 victory. And now they put it. Now it's put in the position of what what more can you do at this point? You're coming off now. You have 2 losses when you were a team that wasn't supposed to be there. Let's just be honest. TCU probably only got in because USC lost to Utah and wasn't able to and couldn't get voted into the bowl game. So it was theirs to lose. They get in. They handle business, even though it was a good game and a back and forth game, somewhat of the same type of game. I would say that they went back and forth with Michigan in their bowl. Excuse me, in their bowl game. And then put themselves in a position to compete for a national championship, in which it was just a complete and utter breakdown as they got throttled, and then to come out with their first game of the season against an unranked opponent and get handled in a sense, taking the L to where they had an opportunity. They were in the game, honestly, when you look at it, even with the 2 interceptions that were thrown, still in the game and just couldn't take care of it. So I look forward to seeing how TCU ends up finishing the season. If they bounce back, how do they bounce back? I don't expect to see them in the same light they were last year, but I will be honest, I did not think that Colorado was going to beat them. But hey, they did. It moves on to the next, of course, and that next being the opposite side of that spectrum, with Deion Sanders basically telling and imploring his soldiers, his players, to bask in this all together. Don't hide from it. Embrace it as they look to continue on with that. Like I said, number 22 now, when they were unranked. now everything, all eyes are on Deion Sanders and his Colorado Buffaloes as you look at it. But some things I want to point out, right? And I mean, call say whatever it is. I'm more of a person that with the realisticness of the situations. So what we continue to hear is Deion Sanders is taking a. I'm excited, Wayne. We good. Personally, it's a bad signing because we already have Hachimura, who believe fits better. So Hachimura, I did forget about Hachimura briefly. You did bring him back up, but even with having Hachimura, now you have Christian Wood that can basically do their. I mean, yes, they can play the same position, but now Hachimura can move over to the four, so he can dispel which in even he can dispel. Um, both in that case. I think Wood is only expected to really play center. I don't know if it's going to be a situation where we see him and Anthony Davis running at the center. I'm running the center at the same as center the 4 and 5 combo or at different times of rotation. Hachimura, I just think it gives more of an opportunity to have different looks. So I don't think it's a bad situation. Although Hachimura is a good fit, now we might have a situation to where even one Hachimura is going to fold under that pressure of now looking at it because it's starting to get the backcourt is getting crowded now to give the not even to give ball to, but to give minutes to because now you have Hachimura, you have Jackson Hayes, Christian Wood, AD. It requires over 25% use rate in order to be effective, which means Christian Wood wants the ball. Correct, unless he does great things in that little time in which he has the ball. But I do. It remains to be seen. I guess we'll see when they roll out the starting lineups, and we start to see how that's going to play or how it goes down. So of course, AD being able to move over, and I mean, you take in consideration it could be the torching. That Jokic did on AD might have prompted that. Like we need to get him some more help. And I think this is a low risk, high reward type situation. To whereas we're only looking at $6 million over the course of 2 years. Bringing in someone that can help set the back line and help to be a rim protector as well as give at minimum 10-3, 10-5. That helps. Think about it compared to Wayne Gabriel. I think it's a good even trade off for the most part when you look at what he was doing. I think it made good business sense. I think Rob Pelinka is still doing this thing now. If again, it looks good on paper, and that's what it is. So we see it on of course, what you was just talking about before that. The eyes is on Trojans, Caleb, in which it is because now, like I said, with Shador Sanders on pulling up and showing out, Travis from Florida State pulling up and showing out, it's really started like what he has to show that again. He's gonna run away with the Heisman Trophy, but I go back to saying it's one game. Well, in this case, USC has 2 games, but it's already been one game. So it's an opportunity for going forth this up and see what is he going to do, especially when on September 30th, Shador Sanders, Caleb Williams is going to be on the same field competing for the same dub in which we should see what is going on. But like I said, Coach Prime basically implores his players to embrace, bask in the new spotlight in which you're in, and don't run from it. So a couple of things come up, like I said, though, in which I think saying there has been a little wool pulled over the eyes, and which is it's not accepted, it's to be expected. First and foremost, there are 90 new players on the Colorado Buffalo squad. 90. 90. Of them 90 players, I think was it 50 at least 50 average of 50. I mean not an average. I think of them 90 players, 58 of them or something like that, or some number like that, were pulled from the transfer portal, but there's 90 new players on that squad. I'm done talking with the talks of he's taken a 1-11 team and turned them around. We don't know that yet. First and foremost, we don't know that yet. They're one game better. They're actually equals what they did last year. So that's what it is. If they are able to knock off Matt Rule and his Nebraska Cornhuskers this Saturday, then we can say they are on the road potentially to be at that point. They're better than what they were last year because they will have 2 versus 1. But let's not act like, even though it's not likely, but let's not act like they can go 2. They can't go 2-10 or anything like that. That's first and foremost. Secondly, when you look at it, it's not the same team. It's new coaches. It's new players. It's not the same 1-11 team that was that graced the field in Colorado in Boulder last year. It's not the same team. So I'm going to remove that from my database or my rebuttal when we talk about the Colorado Buffaloes, because it's not the same team. There's no longer there are 90 players that are now on that team that were not there last year. It's not the same team. It's the same mindset. All that type of stuff is gone. So it's a new team that was basically being having the record of 1-11 distilled upon them because of their association to the institution, to which Colorado was a 1-11 team last year. But the Colorado Buffaloes that are in the building now are not the same ones that was in the building last year. Completely different. So I basically wanted to dispel that. That's not the same. So it's to say that, I mean, it makes for content, I guess, or conversation, but in shade is the team is not the same. Going forth, though, of course, it'll be looked at. Like now, Dion has a opportunity to reset the narrative on the Colorado Buffaloes, and if they are a team that can be competitive. Now, that is what he is doing. And so far, he came out with a shootout with TCU and showed that he has a son in Shedeur Sanders that can be competitive at this level, a potential Heisman hopeful, probably with the if he continues to show a glimpse of what he did on Saturday, then we definitely see that there could be a battle going on at minimum for offensive player or the best player, MVP in what is to be the last year predominantly for the Pac-12. Before they start to go their separate ways, almost like replacement players. And then additionally, when you continue to look at it, the swan song continues. The Pac-12 13-0 in their first 2 weeks in which their teams have played. 13-0. Got to say something for it. So I know there's a lot of talks about all the Pac-12. We see more tests, of course, coming up this week. Of course, I think some of them start to play each other, so we can expect to see the losses because, of course, if you're playing each other, there's going to be a L to be taken. But it's going down, and they're showing to go. Pac-12 is showing that they are a conference to be talked about, while these other conferences are being knocked off. ACC, of course, we see Clemson lose to Duke, which someone had to lose. It just didn't expect it to be Clemson in that aspect. And then, of course, you saw the SEC take an L again to the ACC with the Florida State defensive, showing the defensive strength, shutting them down to 31-7 in the second half after they was down by 3 points in the first. It happens. So we're basically going to see Travis Hunter. I see a lot of comments and stuff like that. I'm not going to say that he's not. He's pretty good. Of course, when you look at it, of course, being created in the same mode as his coach when his coach was there, a star, both sides of the balls, both sides of the ball, definitely put it in the work. But I think, like I said, it was one game, and we get a chance to see what he's like. You know what? By the end of this month, we're going to know exactly about I think we have a clear and concise look at what Shedeur, Travis, as well as Colorado are after they run the gamut. Of course, over the course of their next 3 games being Nebraska, Oregon, and USC. So come the 1st of October, we should have a different outlook. Of course, we might see a situation to where maybe Chicago, maybe they could be in the top 5 of the not top 5, in the top 10 or even the top 15 of the top 25, depending upon what the outcome is. Of course, in that situation, when you look at that and take in consideration, it's going to be a hard fought because right now in the top 25, there are 6 of the 25 teams come from the Pac-12. Of course, the highest being USC at number 6, in which I'm going to talk about too. That's some BS, but I'm going to reserve my comments for a little later in this. But number 6, USC being the 16, followed by Washington at number 8, Oregon correction, Utah and Oregon following 12 and 13, Oklahoma. Oregon State at 16, and of course the newly minted Buffaloes at 22. But going from the bottom to the top 25 is Clemson, 24 being Tulane, in which they are going to be enthralled in a game this weekend. I think is it Texas A&M, in which Tulane gets another chance to play a top ranked opponent as they have a top 25 game as well this weekend. Texas A&M at 23, Colorado, before mentioned Colorado at 22. Duke at number 21. At number 20 comes in Ole Miss. 19 is Wisconsin. At number 18, Oklahoma. As I owe Bishop apology, I told him that the Oklahoma wasn't going to move up, but I guess with so many upsets that it was only inevitable for it to happen. However, had it not been that such, I don't think Oklahoma would have moved up had it just been TCU that's up. What's good, Eric? What's going on, fam? Glad to have you in formation this morning, brother. Glad to see you. What's good with you? Oregon State comes in at 17 is North Carolina. Oregon State comes in at number 16. At 15, Kansas State. LSU falls again from number 5 to number 14. Oregon moves up to 13. Utah to 12. Texas to 11. We'll see where they are at after this weekend as they play the number 3 ranked Alabama Crimson Tide. At number 9 comes Tennessee. Number 8, Washington Huskies. At 7, Penn State Nittany Lions. USC Trojans at 6. Ohio State comes in at 5. 4, Florida State with 3 first place votes. 3 being Alabama. 2 being Michigan, 2 first case votes, and of course, finishing up the top 25 at number 1 is Georgia Bulldogs, 58 first place votes. So in this rendition of the top 25, I don't get it. Of course, like I said, I'm a USC fan. Of course, everyone knows that this is watching the show and peep game. I don't understand how USC, who throttled 2 teams, right? Throttled 2 teams. 35 points, an average of 17, 12 points a game average at this point. 12 points a game average at this point. Throttled 2 teams. That, and of course, I get it. One being San Jose State. And yet they keep playing the Trojans. Holding on to the number 6, holding on to number 6, being held at number 6, while Florida State dropped from number 8. There you go, Eccles. See, Eccles, there you go. They played the same as anyone else. The only teams, honestly, when you to keep it 100, the only teams that have played somebody for the most part is Colorado and TCU. So it's deserving of them. Duke and Clemson, and we know in both instances, Duke and Colorado was supposed to be the doormat, in which they were the door. Washington, like I said, so you had those 2 teams. Then you had Florida State played LSU 5 and 8. And after that, that's honestly it. That anyone really played anybody in the top 25. So how is it? Yeah, that's what I was saying. That was the only other. That was the only truly the other top game. The only top games, which was People Wars. You had three upsets technically, but the best game, of course, was that 7 versus 5. I mean, 8 versus 5, in which it was a complete and utter dismantle and blow up. So yes, I do. I would say that Florida State deserved to go from it, which I expected it. But what I did not expect is USC to stand fast. I did not expect USC to stand fast and to be jumped by Florida State. And you know what? I won't even front you. I wasn't upset that Florida State jumped USC because they took care of they were an 8th ranked team and took care of business versus a 5th rank. That's deserving to move up. 4 spots, possibly. But how does USC? I know how USC gets jumped again. It's that same moniker or whatever case like that. That we're going to continue to get that same on type of BS to where we have to go late in the season and prove that we can be that who we are is who exactly we are. But the fact that Ohio State struggled in their game, but yet they come in above USC. At minimum, USC should be the number 5. USC should be in the top 5 this morning. That's all I'm saying. That's my take on it. USC should be in the top 5 this morning. When the rankings dropped yesterday, USC should have been in the top 5. And it's not based on the fact of, I'm a fan. It's based on that's what it is. Like Eccles just said, it's real. That's what's real. They didn't expect to jump forward. I wasn't surprised. I wasn't upset about the 4. I at minimum thought they was going to. I initially thought they were going to be behind USC and USC was going to move up. I honestly thought that Florida State was potentially going to move up to the 5th spot, and USC was going to and Florida State was going to take the 6th spot. So I expected USC to move up. I wasn't even thinking about Ohio State being dropped down. But Florida State drops down, moves up to the 4th spot, dropping Ohio State to the 5th spot, and USC sits on the outside looking in. And so I look at it when I look at the two due to the performances, like, why isn't Ohio State number 6? And it's going to continue to be that. I get it. In which Ohio State can't even decide on who's going to be the starting quarterback for the team. So it's like, so what is it? I look at CRA, what is it that USC has to do to get love and get the respect? Because the table isn't set for us to do that. So no messing up. And that's what I'm talking about, Coach Wayne. Like, how did Ohio State even get a chance to do that? But you know what I'm saying, it is what it is. And I'm just trying to figure out at this point, I'm advocating for the Trojans because I have the slightest idea what is going on. Like, how do you put in position? And then when you look at it, how did Florida? I mean, I can see how Florida got 2. I'll give you that. How Florida got 3 first case votes. So that, in my opinion alone, is what I know made the difference on why Florida State moved up past Ohio State. But how is Ohio State still ranked above USC in that factual thing? If you was willing to move them up, they ain't even like Bama. It's like Bama, like Notre Dame. Like Notre Dame continues to stick around. For the life of me, I don't know how Notre Dame continues to be in the top 10 year after year after year after year, but they do. So, in which they do, I get it, the games and stuff like that. But of course, you know what I'm saying. I just don't understand that. USC should not be a 6. Should not have steadfast at number 6. USC at this point has been at number 6 for 2 consecutive weeks, and they have outscored their opposition by over 110 points. They at this point is a 65, a 70 plus differential, even though they haven't played anyone really, but still, you know what I'm saying? No one really, like, I I wonder who. I know the schedules are set prior to, um, and but whoever did the schedule for Colorado before this year started, masterful, because now with them playing these games, Colorado just by it is not just a Colorado thing. It's because it's a Pac-12 thing. Colorado currently has 5 ranked opponents on their schedule. Now, depending on how they move through that and how the teams does, they have 5 ranked opponents on their schedule. They have Oregon State, USC, Oregon, Utah, and Washington on their schedule. And now a top 22 team. So it's going to be interesting to see how they navigate that. They face 2 of the top 3 in the conference within the next 2 weeks. So depending on how they come out of that is going to really, in my opinion, determine how they probably be looking. And then, of course, we take into consideration. Now we look at what. So what I look at is how can't no one say nothing else. Yes, it's that Leslie. They play USC plays Colorado on the 30th of September, so the last day of this month. Coach Wade with the take. Tennessee will beat Georgia in Knoxville. Telling Galmore to take a look at it. Steak dinner on the line, Coach Wayne. That's what's up. Is it up? But basically, back to what I was just saying, right? So at this point, there is no. I want to keep that same energy that's stated and that's kept when they talk about the SEC and the Big Ten. That these teams beat up on each other, and this is what it is. Because right now, the Pac-12 is in the same stratosphere when we talk about that. They're teams, top-rated teams, that now they're going to get to start beating on each other, and only, of course, only the strong will survive. To where they're going to. So I want to keep that same energy when it comes down to these games. So if these top teams are beating up on one another, then that same energy should be kept when we look at the SEC with the Alabamas, the LSUs, the Tennessees, and all that type of stuff. It should be the same conversation. If that conversation changes, that's going to be that BS, because it should be the same. When Ohio State and Penn State and Michigan get to beating up on one another, that doesn't be a huge shift. I want to see that same energy when the Pac-12 teams start beating, and they start having these games where they're having issues and they're beating up on one another. Oregon is losing to Oregon State, and then Colorado loses to a USC. USC may lose to a Washington. These are top-rated teams. There's Pac-12 has 2 top 10 teams at this point, which they're not meeting right now, but just that conversation. So I want to make sure. I assume that they're going to keep that same energy when it comes down to it, because if that was the case, we wouldn't have these teams. And these teams, 5 of these teams were in the preseason top 25. Currently 2 weeks in, they're in the top 25 still. We should still have the same energy when it comes down to it. ESPN, CBS has SEC television, right? The energy would never be the same, bro. And which now we get, you know what I'm saying, where it comes down to, like you was just saying, Coach Wayne, in-state, that's why there's going to be, there's not about to be a Pac-12. So I just need the energy for this year. That's all I want. 13-0, Big 12, a Power 5 conference, 13-0. After the first 2 weeks of college football, of course, like I said, it's going to start to change over the course of the weekend. But 13-0 right now, that's not bad in my opinion. But like you said, Coach Wayne, those television rights is the reason why there's no longer a Pac-12, and so we're gonna see how it ends up coming out. But of course, like I said, wasn't going to do much for y'all. I hit y'all with that just a little tidbit. Of course, I should be back tomorrow to talk a little bit more, depending on what my schedule is. I'm trying to get acclimated. But definitely at some point I look to have the Military Basketball Association, some of their brass on to talk about their latest and greatest and what's going on. It's literally a week from seeing the NBA in OKC as they have their coaching summit as well as NBA All Star Game. To further that, I've been seeing and watching people post. I know Coach Paris Daniel has done it again, winning yet another tournament as them and the Colorado and Carson faced off in their tournament going forth. So we know there's a lot of tournaments going on. There's a lot of tryouts going on for certain installations. So get down with the get down, go represent the squad. If you're in the area, pull up an OKC to see what's up. When the post goes up in reference to the NBA being on the show, tap in, let's see hear what's going on. Comment as usual. Speak your mind, talk it to sip and get to continue the conversation. Great, saying great things, of course, being up. Of course, like that. I need to contact some. I need to go pull up a couple of places over the course of this week or whatever case like that. So be sure, please continue to tap in, show your love. Greatly appreciate y'all rocking me with this morning. Leslie, Coach Wayne, Echoes, Galmore, and my the ladies this morning, of course, Rita and TT, Eric, saying all that. Look forward to chopping it up with y'all. Feel free to hit me up anytime. But that's our show for this morning. I look forward to seeing y'all again. This is your boy Trey the Commish. I'm up out of here. Peace.